Imagine a pharmaceutical company just spent millions of dollars developing a brand new pill. They confidently claim this reduces cholesterol by exactly 25%. But how do we actually prove that medically and mathematically? We can't just take their marketing team's word for it, right? We need a bulletproof system to test their claim against reality.
Does this new medicine actually work, or are the trial results just a fluke of random chance? Well, by the end of this explainer, you're going to understand the core concepts of statistical hypotheses, the actual formulas behind them, and exactly how to translate real-world problems, just like this cholesterol medicine, into formal statistical symbols. Let's get to it.
Okay, so every single statistical test begins by pitting two opposing viewpoints against each other. Think of it like a courtroom trial. On one side, you have the established baseline, the way things currently are. On the other side, you have the challenger, the bold new claim trying to prove itself. In the world of statistics, we give these two opposing forces very specific, very important names.
First up is the null hypothesis, written mathematically as H sub 0. Think of the word null as meaning nothing to see here, folks. Nothing new is happening. It's a statement of absolutely no difference between variables. They aren't related. It represents the status quo. And here is why this is absolutely crucial. If we look at our data and we just cannot accept this status quo anymore, well, it requires some action. We have to fundamentally change our minds.
Now, opposing the null is the alternative hypothesis, written as H sub A. This is a claim about the population that completely contradicts the null hypothesis. In almost all research, whether it's our new cholesterol pill, a radical new educational program, or a fresh marketing strategy, the alternative hypothesis is the challenger. It's usually exactly the thing the researcher is fighting so hard to prove.
Now, what's really interesting about these pairings is that they act as your ultimate rulebook. This right here is how you translate English into math. Look at how the symbols pair up. If the null hypothesis uses an equal to sign, the alternative uses not equal, greater than, or less than. If the null uses greater than or equal to, the alternative must be strictly less than. And if the null is less than or equal to, the alternative is strictly more than. See how that works? Together they cover literally every possibility.
Now, you might look at those symbol pairings and ask a question I hear all the time from students. Wait, why does the null hypothesis always get the equal sign? It's a great question. Take a close look at the pattern. The null hypothesis always contains the equality, whether it's strictly equal, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. Why? Because when we make our final statistical decision, we are strictly focusing on whether to reject or not reject a specific fixed baseline. The alternative hypothesis, our challenger, never ever has a symbol with an equal sign in it. Keep that rule in your back pocket. Let's make this a whole lot easier with a real-world example. Suppose we read a claim. No more than 30% of the registered voters in Santa Clara County voted in the primary election. Okay? Step 1 is translating the English. No more than 30% literally translates to less than or equal to 0.30. Because we are talking about a proportion or a percentage of people, we use the letter P. And because it has that equal to component, boom, it automatically becomes our null hypothesis. So step 2, H sub 0 is P is less than or equal to 0.30. Step 3, the alternative has to be the exact mathematical opposite. So H sub A becomes P is strictly greater than 0.30.
Let's try another one, but this time focusing on averages instead of proportions. Step 1. We want to test whether the mean GPA of students in American colleges is different from 2.0. The word different is key here. It means it could be higher or it could be lower, but it is specifically not equal to 2.0. Not equal doesn't contain an equal sign, right? So it must be our alternative hypothesis. So H sub A is the mean, which we represent by the Greek letter mu, is not equal to 2.0. That essentially forces our null hypothesis to be the exact opposite. Mu equals 2.0.
Okay, let's test your attention really quick. We want to test whether the mean height of 8th graders is exactly 66 inches. I'll give you a second. Think about where the 66 goes and what symbols do we use for the null and the alternative. Mentally lock in your answer right now. Take a guess, you've completely got this.
Did you get it? Okay, because the claim states the mean is 66 inches. That represents an exact equality. And remember our golden rule? The equal sign always goes to the null hypothesis. So h sub 0 is mu equals 66. The opposite of is not. So our alternative hypothesis, h sub a, is simply mu is not equal to 66.
And this brilliantly illustrates how English words force our mathematical hand. Consider this claim. College students take less than 5 years to graduate. Less than is strictly a mathematical less than sign. There's no equality there whatsoever. Therefore, it has to be the alternative hypothesis. A sub a is mu is less than 5. The opposing baseline, the null hypothesis, has to cover everything else left on the table. So h sub 0 is mu is greater than or equal to 5.
Now let's connect this to another real-life scenario. In an issue of U.S. News & World Report, an article on school standards noted that about half of all students in France, Germany, and Israel take advanced placement exams. But for U.S. students, that number was reported as a mere 6.6%. Now, suppose an educational researcher reads this and thinks, you know what, I bet the percentage of U.S. students who take AP exams is actually more than 6.6%.
So the crucial point here is how we translate this researcher's goal into our test. They want to test if the percentage or proportion P is more than 6.6%. More than means strictly greater than. There is no equal sign there. So that goes straight to the alternative hypothesis. H sub a is P is greater than 0.066. The null hypothesis simply takes the opposing stance to cover the rest of the possibilities. H sub 0 is P is less than or equal to 0.066.
Wait, this is super important, so let's do one last try before we completely wrap up the translation rules. On a state driver's test, historically about 40% normally pass on the first try. We want to run a test to see if more than 40% pass today. Think carefully about where the greater than symbol goes. Does it go to the null or the alternative?
If you said the alternative hypothesis, you absolutely nailed it. More than 40% lacks an equal sign, so h sub a gets the p is greater than 0.40, leaving h sub 0 to act as the baseline. P is less than or equal to 0.40. Congratulations, you've officially mastered translating everyday English words into formal statistical symbols.
Now that we know exactly how to set up our two opposing sides, what comes next? Well, since the null and alternative hypotheses are completely contradictory, you have to examine evidence in the form of sample data. But here is a critical rule. We never truly accept a hypothesis as absolute truth. Instead, there are only two valid options for a decision in statistics. You either reject h sub 0 because your sample data strongly favors the alternative challenger, or you do not reject h sub 0, often called declining to reject, because your sample just didn't provide enough convincing evidence to overturn the status quo. Even if you secretly suspect the challenger might be right, you just don't have the proof. Before we finish, let's quickly summarize the key takeaways. Every statistical test has a null hypothesis, representing the status quo, which always includes the equal sign, and an alternative hypothesis representing the challenger, which never includes the equal sign. We evaluate evidence to see if we have enough proof to reject the status quo. But this leaves us with a fascinating, highly practical question. How do we actually calculate our sample data to decide whether to reject the null or not? What does the math actually look like to prove it? Well, that is exactly what we're going to calculate in our next experiment.